Praise the Lord. Happy to be here today. Um, see, I guess because I make slides, you guys already know kind of what I'm going to talk about, and it kind of misses the surprise. But I decided today was going to be a little bit different. Um, Usually, I kind of just do slides and do my sermon. And a long time ago, I used to have like sermon and visual aids. I thought, you know what? Let me try to like combine all three together and kind of add a little bit of visual aids in my sermon. So this kind of already spoils it. But I have a lunchbox. I have a lunchbox that is Peanuts slash Snoopy, whatever. And the reason I got this is because this is actually my mom's. And um, I was thinking as I was looking at this, because we've been cleaning lately, and as you're cleaning, you guys know what you usually do. You find things whether to donate, to throw away, if it's going to stay another year. You guys know that whole process. So I looked at this and I thought to myself, this thing has lasted decades. I mean, she has her name inside it. She wrote down her name in it. And what year was that? 1975. So 1975 is when her name was written on this lunchbox. And I thought to myself, I've seen this for so many years. This thing used to hold stamps that she collected. Now it's got a bunch of different memorabilia of the peanuts that I stuck in here. That I bought a Snoopy calendar, and every month they were giving me a different thing for a different month. Until I realized that they're charging me like $70 a month to get a new piece. I was like, I'm not paying like hundreds of dollars for a calendar, so I kind of stopped that. So now I got some random Snoopy calendar pieces that I kind of kept in here. And I was thinking to myself, this thing has traveled with us through so many houses and apartments, and it's been stuck in a bunch of closets. It's been around, and it made its way to me because now I'm using it. I know that it's hers, but I use it now. And I think to myself, well, this thing is around since the 70s. It's got scuff marks on the paint. Paint's been peeled off. It's got uh, dents. I can think of the word. It's got dents in here, but it still works. It still like opens and it does its job. And if I were to try to sell this to somebody, it wouldn't have really anything. It wouldn't gain any traction. Nobody's going to understand how important it is, even though it's important to me. But yet, this thing holds so much value. But yet, to the outside person, it means nothing. And I thought to myself, well, we act that way a lot. We have things in our closet that we've been keeping for decades. It lasts every time we go through spring cleaning for some reason. We have mementos like these. You're like, they don't sell this anymore. That store is out of business. It's the only thing I have for that store. So we have lots of those things. We place value on items so often, even though to the outside person it means nothing to them. So I thought to myself, well, if we do that for a bunch of things, what if I were to break that down into categories and find out why do we deem these things precious? So the first category is photographs. We all have tons and tons of photo albums on photo albums on photo albums. Now even we're in the digital age where now we have thousands of photos on our camera roll as opposed to like the hundreds we've had over like decades worth of time. But the point is if you have a wedding photo, if you have a family photo, a get together, if you have a vacation photo, those hold so much sentimentality, yeah, that nobody outside of you understands that. And it's even more powerful when you lose somebody, and that's all that you have of them is just seeing that picture. When you lose a spouse, you see that wedding photo. When you lose a child, you see the birthing and then same thing with parents. You look at that family gathering, you're like, I get pangs looking at this photo, but they're at least still here in that photo. Nobody else can understand that, but it holds so much meaning to you. And then you have photos that you like to store in different places. Like some people take a photo, they store it inside their wallet, and that's that wallet photo of their family, of their kids. Some people stick their photo inside their Bible. They open up the Bible and there's a photo there. Some stick them in their diary, some stick them in their planner or calendar, or a lot of people love to stick it on their fridge. That's what people love to do. But the point is that people here have photos that can never be replaced. The moment you take that photo, that moment has been captured. You cannot reproduce it. If you had a wedding photo and for some reason that wedding photo was ripped or was caught in a fire or something, it's gone. You cannot reproduce it. It's happened in the past. It holds so much meaning. You will stick it in the safe. When you have a when people always say when there's a fire, I know exactly when I'm going to run in the house and grab because they know exactly what holds meaning to them. And so then I moved on to another category, clothing. Those of us that have kids, you understand how important it is when you see those baby clothing. You saw them grow older, having to change out of the different sizes. My mom, I know that she has some of my baby clothes. My dad has some of my baby clothes. And they always say, well, when you have kids of your own, then they can wear those. So there's like a meaning behind like passing down clothing to the next generation. But then some people also still have their wedding dress. They still have it either in storage or in their closet, in a box. They want to keep it safe because maybe they want to pass it on to their daughter or stuff like that. Some people have clothes from the 70s and 80s that are out of style, but are waiting for it to come back into style. So they never want to donate it or throw it away because we've seen that in the last decade. Older clothing have been coming back into style. Some people have their favorite shirts. Some people have their lucky shirts. When sports are going on, I know a lot of people wear their specific jersey, they wear a specific hat, they got their own traditions and things because they say every single time this person plays or this team plays, I need to wear it. I can't wash it. They have a very specific way of handling that item because it has value and meaning to them. And then we go to handwritten keepsakes. These are letters, handwritten letters. A lot of people have now been moving towards emails, and that's kind of they thought emails was going to overtake letters, but you can't overtake letters. People still hand out Christmas letters, they do wedding invitations, they do a bunch of different things. Letters are still going to be around. Birthday cards, notes. Back when you're in the middle of like romance, you have the love notes you pass to each other, and then you find them, and then you read them back, and you're like, wow, this has so much meaning to me. Seeing this first birthday card I got from my grandparents, seeing this wedding invitation that we wrote out for hours and hours and hours to pass out to our guests, seeing these letters that I was a pen pal with like across the sea, it means so much to them. And now we're in a world where all of our correspondence is just texts, emails, and it gets lost. There's nothing really memorable about it. I mean, you can try to like find an old phone, boot it up, and try to find your text messages. But just currently now, if I'm like, Mom, didn't we talk about this like last month? Like, oh, scroll, 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 try to find what exactly we're talking about. Now we have a search feature inside your phone, but like the point is that it doesn't hold as much meaning as opening up a box and seeing the letters you did when you're sending them back and forth between you and another person. So I thought about another category, the childhood keepsakes. When we all grow up, we have different things that hold different things of meaning. Some people have stuffed animals, some people have toys, some people have blankets or something in their collection. They hold on to it because it's a memory of their childhood. I know that my mom had a bear. No, I'm talking about Mia. So when did you get Mia? 1984. Okay, but I was gonna say how old are you? 13. So she was 13, and she got a stuffed animal. That stuffed animal was with her in her uh, teenage years and growing up. Then she had my older brother. That became his toy. Then she had me. It became my toy and his toy. Then she had Philemon. Then it became all three of our toys. And that toy is still around. Granted, it's got no eyes and a nose and a mouth anymore because the things popped off. So it's seen some stuff. But the point is that we're not going to throw it away, even though it's got no eyes, no nose, and a mouth. It holds too much meaning. It spent decades in our household, generations, and if God blesses me with a kid, I hope that kid can find some joy in seeing a stuffed animal, even if there's no face. I know what I did. I took a sharpie and I kind of drew eyes and a nose, but it doesn't replace the little buttons and stuff like that. But people have these things that they don't even touch for years. They store it in their closet, they store it in the storage unit, but they know exactly where they are. If somebody were to say, hey, so and so, don't you have like a childhood stuffed animal that you grew up with. They're like, yeah, I know it's in maybe this storage unit, but I can go and get it for you. They know exactly where they are. It's not like it's gone because they've made the choice to keep it safe because it's valuable and precious to them. Then we go on to the last category: heirlooms, family heirlooms. People have rings, they have watches, they have jewelry, even a Bible. I know a lot of people that their parent or grandparent had a Bible, passed it on to them, passed it on to the next generation, so it continues on. And we have people, the mother or the grandmother will pass on some jewelry to the daughter or the daughter-in-law, and then just it continues for generations and generations. I know men also like to do rings and watches and stuff like that. They pass it on, and then it continues on to the next generation. So these are heirlooms, things that mean so much to them that, again, if you were to take it to a pawn shop or take it to someplace else, try to sell it, that number that they give you, that value that they're giving that item, is nowhere near the value that you have for that item. Because you're like, yeah, maybe this is like a World War II watch, but it's my grandfather's. It's my great grandfather's. Like it means something to you. So you would never sell it. So things carry stories, things have history, things carry memories. And the funny thing is that if I asked any one of you guys to just think of something in your life that you've held on to for decades and decades and decades, that have lasted the spring cleaning, that have lasted the move from house to house, apartment to apartment, you all could probably think of them easily and name them. Things that are photographs, things that are clothing, things that are handwritten things, things that are childhood things, things that are heirlooms. You all have something that you've kept. Obviously, they're all different. I have a box here of all of mine. So this is my lunchbox, my keepsake box that has one of those categories that I'm going to go through as I'm preaching this message. But this is mine. You all have your own box of your own. Like whether it's in your house or in storage or somewhere, you have something that holds so much value that nobody can understand it but you've kept holding on to it because it holds value to you. It holds meaning. So I'm thinking to myself, why do we keep these things? Why do these things have some hold over us that we can't just say, you know what, gotta throw it in the trash, gotta donate it? Like, why are you holding on to it so hard? Why are you so resistant to throw it away or give it away? And so I'm not going to answer that yet. That's kind of the whole point of this whole message. But we all know that there is a reason. So I want you guys to think back on time that's passed. So think about when you were little and you were growing up. Remember your childhood. Think about your first house that you lived in. Remember the first time you went to school. Remember the first job you ever had. Remember your parents when they were younger and they've told you their stories of when they were younger. Remember all the different seasons of your life. And maybe one of those memories are why you've kept the things that you've kept. Maybe that's why we keep photographs. Maybe that's why we keep these clothing. Maybe that's why we keep these handwritten keepsakes, or why we have these childhood keepsakes, or why we have these heirlooms, because those things remind us of that season. It could also be as simple as, I'm holding on to this childhood toy because that's the last time I remember being happy. People hold on to things because that thing reminds them of something, whether it's a time that's passed that makes them happy, or they're holding on to a memory of a lost loved one. There's a reason that they're still holding on to it. So a chapter, a moment, a memory, a piece of time, all those things are reasons why we have things in our keepsake box. So I'm going to move on to the first point of the message today, which is point one: time changes conditions. Now, we all know that time changes. Time changes the people in your family. You guys know that when you have kids, those kids don't stay kids anymore. They go from newborn to toddlers to young kids, teenagers, preteens. Then they become the young adults. Then they go off on their own, build their own family, and now you have more family. So it doesn't stay the same. The people change. The personalities sometimes change. Their knowledge of things change. Photographs that used to be just the two of us become now four, five, six, seven. Clothing's change. We already talked about that. Style changes all the time. Every decade you have a new style. Your neighborhoods change. I'm pretty sure wherever you live now, if you say, you know what, back in 2000, it looks different than 2026. Back in the 90s, it's different than 2026. But it also changes us as well. So I'm going to jump to a book in the Bible written by King Solomon. King Solomon was the wisest man because he asked God for wisdom, and God gave him wisdom and fame and fortune and so on and so forth. But he wrote this book of the Bible called Ecclesiastes. And Ecclesiastes was a very interesting book that I always read because he's so wise, but then sometimes he would say stuff like, everything is vanity. And he would say things that, like, well, you know what? You're wise, but you're saying everything is useless, everything is pointless. But there's a part in Ecclesiastes. I'm going to go to Ecclesiastes 3. He says in the first verse, to everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. So Solomon's is saying that everything has a season. Now that could be a positive or a negative thing if you were to think about it. But because he's not just talking about just like season as in like summer, fall, winter, spring. Season as in time. Life has seasons. Like I said, there's seasons of your childhood. I'm pretty sure that if you were to have a memory of yourself when you were 1, 2, and 3, that's a lot different than your memory of yourself when you're 9, 10, 11. A lot different than when you're 16, 17, 18. So you have different seasons growing up. You have different seasons of when you went to school. You have elementary school, middle school, high school. And if you go to college, you've got your bachelor's program. Going further, you can do master's or PhD, or you can go into the trades. But you have different seasons of your life. Then also if you're married. I'm not married, but I understand that when people talk about their marriage, marriage year 1 is a lot different than marriage year 10, which is a lot different than marriage year 20, 30, 40, 50. Because you grow with them, you grow with each other, you grow individually, and you've lived life as a couple. You've gone through different things. You've gone through children, jobs, moving, a bunch of different stuff, raising children, even when you start over. A lot of people, when they change jobs, it feels like they're starting over. So let's say for myself, I worked in telecommunications for 10 to 12 years. And then suddenly I switch over to teaching. Completely different. I was sitting at a desk, answering calls, typing on the computer, and now I'm walking around up and down the classroom, doing a lot of cardio, walking through these desks and talking to kids and being a lot more social, a lot more extroverted than I was before. So it felt like I was starting over. But that's a whole different season of my life. Age-wise, location-wise, but just also mentally, I was a completely different person. Then also seasons of success. Some people, when they make a certain amount of money and then they move on to a different amount of money, that's a different season for them as well. They've been waiting for that promotion, waiting for that bump in pay. And then some people have seasons of loss. Like I said before, when you lose people, you lose a friend, lose a family member. It's a completely different life before and after that loss. So those are your seasons as well. But then you also have seasons of joy. Wonderful things. Like I said, new job, get married, you have kids, your friends have kids, your kids have kids. All those things are reasons and milestones to feel joy. Those are also seasons of your life. So life moves through seasons. And whether we realize it or not, many of those things really are reminders of why we keep things in our keepsake box. Some things in your box might be things that remind you of that season of joy, of that season of growing up, of that season of marriage, of moving. You keep those mementos because they remind you of those things. And they're not just objects anymore. They would be objects to the regular person, but to you, those things are memories. They're chapters of your life. They're moments of your life. And so Solomon says, every one of those seasons has a purpose. It's not an accident. It's not randomness. There's purpose. But then Solomon says in verse 3, I think it's 3 or 2. I can't remember. I think it might be 2, 2a. He says, a time to be born and a time to die. But that's the story of every family, of every person. Generations come, generations go. Children are not children anymore, they become parents. Parents then become grandparents. The years keep moving on and on and on. And one of those ways that you remember those seasons are your photographs. So some of you don't even need to see a photograph. If I were to say, do you remember the first time that you had your kid? You know, people like to take photos of the newborn child. You don't need to see the photo of the newborn child. You can remember of what my child looked like that day. I mean, the picture would help you, but you don't need a reminder because it's already an ingrained memory. It's such a core memory of your life. And so when I mention a photograph, things will rush into your mind. You know exactly where it is in your house. You know exactly who's in that photo. And you know exactly why that photo matters to you. So if I handed that photo to you right now, you wouldn't see that photo as just being a photo. You'd revisit that memory. You revisit that season. If you were married to somebody and they showed you that wedding photo, looking at that photo would evoke something inside of you, remembering how it felt leading up to that marriage, how it felt when you got married, how it felt seeing family and friends, how it felt after the marriage. All these things would rush to your mind because that object is not an object anymore. It is something greater. It is something valuable and precious. And so some people have photos and they store them in different places. Some of them store them in photo albums. Some of them, like I said, store them on their dressers or in their Bibles or something. But they know exactly where those photos are. But why does it matter? Because those memories matter to them. So I'm going to ask my mom. We have tons of photos at home. We have tons of albums at home. A lot of photos are not in albums yet. If there was a fire and you could only save one photograph or one album, do you know exactly what you're going to grab? No? Is it too many?
Yeah.
Okay, so then do you know where your photos are?
Yeah.
So you would run where?
To my room.
You'd run to your room, grab.
Grab the album that has Nani and Granddad's older photos, like when they were young,
Mhm.
grandparents' photos in there, and then I'll try to grab stuff from when you guys are born. Try.
Okay, so you have.
Because the later decades are probably in our phone, but I've also taken a lot of those pictures of the blue phones.
Exactly.
They're in the cloud.
So you have an answer. You know where your photos are. You have a sort of plan of how to grab those things and run. So a lot of us have that sort of answer ourselves. If I were to say, your house is on fire, you got to go grab something, anything, most of you would probably grab photos or documents or something that has such memory and such significance that it cannot be replaced. So my mom knew immediately. I already knew that she was going to tell me exactly what she was going to do. I didn't know what she was going to grab, but I knew that she was going to say, I'm going to make a beeline to my room, grab those albums, head out the door, safe. But everybody has that sort of answer. But let's be honest, that some of those photographs that she's talking about are probably not in the best condition. She just said it's got photos of her parents and like parents.
Yeah.
So they probably have yellow marks on them. They probably have creases on them. They probably are faded. It's not as crisp and clear anymore. The paper has aged. The pictures have aged, but they've survived all this time for a reason. She wants to keep those things preserved so that she can show us, her kids, of what my grandparents look like, what my great grandparents look like, and hopefully the next generation can look at those photos as well. Because those photos are so much more than just something they took one time in their life. It's memories of people that are lost to us. I will never have I never met my great grandfather. My great grandfather was alive when Stephen was in my mother's stomach, so I wasn't alive when he when he was here, but there's photos of him. It's like I know him because I see what he looks like. I see him interacting with my family in photos. There's no videos because there wasn't videos really back then, but I still have that. And then the future generations, if those pictures are preserved, they will have those too. That's why they're so important. That's why they survive every single time you go through cleanings, every single time you move from house to house, apartment to apartment, they stay safe. They stay in an area to quickly grab and go. You know exactly where they are. You don't need to worry about it. But they survive because again, they have so much meaning. So, I'm going to show you a photo that I found that has wear and tear. It's got some of this coloring has scratches on it, but it's important to me. It is a picture of myself when I was how old, Mom?
Less than one.
Less than 1 years old. So I have this photo. It's supposed to be inside a what's it called? A frame, but I took it out because I noticed that there's little white dots all over it. Because I don't know if it's been scratched up by fingernails. I don't know if it's been scratched up by the frame. Oh, the glass broke. The glass broke, so the glass scraped it as it was falling down. So I was looking at it. I was like, I need to take it out of the frame so I can see that yes, like I can't really fix them myself. I'm sure I can take it somewhere to get it like fixed up, but like my own, I can see that it's seen life. It's lasted 30 years, but it means a lot to me because I don't really have my own photos. Like they're in my mom's albums, but I'm not walking around carrying this in my wallet. It's a giant picture. But if I ever wanted to show somebody what I looked like as a kid, or if I wanted to show somebody like something of my childhood, this means something to me. So like this outfit was specifically worn by myself, by my brother, by Faleon or no?
I don't think he fit that, but it was only worn once.
Yeah, so it was specific. So you kind of you remember like when Sears would have those like photos thing that you would go to Sears and take your family photos. So like this was like one of those things, right? You would go to Sears or go to it was Sears. You go to Sears and then you put your kid down, then take a photo, and now you've got childhood photos. So I have this, and nobody's gonna care about this. I'm the only one really, aside from immediate family, that's gonna care about this photo. But I'm going to keep it safe. I'm gonna put it back inside the frame and keep it safe because it's a season. It's a chapter of my life. It is a moment in time that can never be replaced. So Solomon says, a time to be born and a time to die. Photographs remind us of both those things, a time to be born and a time to die. It reminds us of people who have entered into our lives, but then it also reminds us of people who have left our lives. But then Solomon doesn't even stop there. He goes on, and then he says, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. Things have to grow. If you guys know anything about gardening, if you have a plant and you put it in a pot, what happens? You plant it, that thing grows roots. Then that thing runs out of space. You got to put it in from a small cup to a bigger cup. Put it into a pot, then a bigger pot. Then you're like, you know what? It's got to go outside now. I got no more room. So you take it outside, you make a space, you allow it to grow because it needs to develop, it needs to mature. Nothing can stay the same. The seed has to become the plant. The plant has to become the harvest. The baby has to become the child. The child becomes the teenager. Teenager becomes adult. The years keep moving and life keeps changing. And one of the clearest reminders of things that change is, again, clothing. Like I said before, a lot of you guys have something of yours that stands the test of time. Your favorite shirt, your favorite jacket, your childhood clothing, like I said before, like baby clothing and stuff like that. Maybe it's in a closet, maybe it's in an attic, maybe it's in a storage bin, maybe it's tucked away somewhere that you haven't even looked at for years. But the funny thing is that those things don't fit anymore. Those baby clothes can't fit me anymore. So why am I keeping those clothes? Why does it have so much meaning to me? Why are these clothes from back in the day that are not in style yet and are surviving decades? Why is it still surviving? Every single move, every single spring cleaning, every single donation pile, why is it still around? Every year you say to yourself, you know what? We should probably get rid of these. But then every year it goes right back in that box, push right back under your bed, right back in your closet. And like, next year, next year maybe. I know there's holes in it. I know that it's not in style. I know that it's not even, it's very loose now. There's like no tightness to the fabric anymore. But I'll deal with it next year. And we do that all the time. So again, those clothes, what are they? They're reminders of a season, of a chapter, of a moment in time. That's why it holds so much memory to you. That's why it's so precious. And so some some of you guys remember like these pictures. These are like baby clothes. Some of you guys remember tying those shoes for your kid, putting those clothes on for your kid. And you have memories, very core memories of seeing them wear that first onesie, seeing them wear that first what's called like rain outfit or something, or the winter coat, and they grow out of it, and then you have to get bigger sizes, bigger sizes, and bigger sizes. But then the moment you stumble across that piece of clothing as you're cleaning, you just stare at it, and you just remember that kid. It's now 6 feet. That used to be this small, and it brings you right back. Because again, it's not just a piece of clothing. It's not just an object. It holds something precious. And so now you think about, maybe I want to pass that on to my kids. I want to see their kids wear these clothes. I want to see that thing passed down. And so life keeps moving. Things don't stay the same. And it's not just baby clothes anymore. Like I said, it could be a wedding dress. It could be a suit. It could be a military uniform if you served and you store that and you don't wear it anymore. It could be a jersey. Like again, maybe you wear it specifically for when your team is playing and you want to wear it for good luck. But something is in your closet. Something is in your attic. Something is in your box. Something is in your storage unit that if you were to find it right now, it would pull you into a memory. It would pull you into a season, into a moment, back to a previous chapter of your life. Because clothing has a way of carrying memories. Here's one of mine. This is that thing. This is that silver outfit that was inside that photo. The same thing. She found it. Where was it? In her closet.
Wow.
It wasn't in some container. It wasn't like in a storage unit. It wasn't. It was in her closet, on the top shelf. She just grabbed it. So I thought to myself, because I asked her about this a while ago when I was looking at photos. I was like, "Oh, Mom, do you have any of my baby photos?" She's like, "Baby clothes." She's like, "Maybe I have some," and she just pulled this out last night. So again, she knew exactly where it was. I didn't know where it was. I asked her about it, but she knew exactly where it was because she didn't want to throw this away. She didn't want to donate it. She didn't want it to be lost. She wanted it to be easily accessible for whatever reason, easily accessible, but thankfully she did because now it's part of my message. But it's also cool because then when it comes a time for me to have kids of my own, I have something to pass on to them.
You used
I,
to fit into that.
I know. I used to fit into that. I don't now. So, yeah, so that would be so cool that this can be passed on to another generation. It's lasted. But these clothes, it's not in perfect condition. It is very old. It is faded. I'm sure that these little sparkles are probably missing some everywhere. It's not as sparkly anymore. But it's outdated. It doesn't fit. But it's been packed away for years. And so people might look at this and they say, you know what? Why are you still keeping that? We have Amazon. We have stores that you can buy baby clothing. You don't need to wear 90s style baby clothing anymore. Like, this doesn't even have a zipper. These are just buttons that are probably going to fall off. But they don't understand that this has meaning. This is important to me. So then my future kids, I would want them maybe at least once to wear it, for even for a photo. They're not going to wear it often because it's like a special occasion. But I'm not going to throw this away. Now that I know that it's around, I'm going to now keep this safe. The responsibility has been passed on to me. So, why do these things stick around? And we're going to get there, but what Solomon has been teaching in Ecclesiastes is that things grow, things mature, time moves on, things change. And so clothing is proof that time changes. This reminds me of myself as a newborn. Other clothes of yours remind you of 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and so on and so forth. But Solomon says a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. Children will grow, families will grow, life will keep on moving. But then Solomon says here, oh, this was the photo. Verse 4, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. There's a lot to unpack in that verse, a lot of emotions. But isn't that just life? Some seasons will make you laugh, will be the greatest moments of your life. And some seasons you don't want to revisit because it makes you cry. Some seasons you wish you could relive. And some seasons you're just thankful that you survived. Some seasons are so wonderful, you don't want it to end. And then some are so difficult, you're amazed you even made it through them. But Solomon says that both those things, all parts of that spectrum, are part of life. There is a time to laugh. There is a time to weep. There is a time to dance. There is a time to mourn, because life contains all those moments. And one of the strongest reminders of those seasons is often the next category, handwritten keepsakes. Do you guys have any letters, any written letters, any birthday cards that were written by parents or friends that you don't like open? You're like, huh, yeah, happy birthday to me. Throw it in the trash. You just hold on to it. Yeah, you're like, no. See, because it means something that they wrote a letter to you, that they gave you a card, Christmas card, birthday card. I was filing all my stuff. I have a giant filing cabinet. I was preparing, and I was going from pre-K all the way to current college age. And I was stumbling across all these cards, birthday cards from Sebastian's first birthday, Sebastian's second birthday, and then all the way to now. I get cards from my grandmother, from my family, and I have them. I'm like, oh wow, I've kept all these things, and now I can kind of file them properly. But it's so cool to see the handwriting of them, the messages that they were writing. 1-year-old me was not going to care about reading that happy first birthday, Sebastian. But now, myself at this age, I can read. That's how much they loved me when I was 1 year old. That's how much they loved me when I was 2 years old. These are all the signs from my grandfather, from my uncle, from my grandmom, from my dad, from my mom. They were writing all these things to 1-year-old me. Happy first birthday. Now I get to enjoy that now, looking back, because I never looked at it when I was a kid. Some people have recipes. A lot of people have recipes that have been passed down from grandma to aunt, from uncle, from grandfather, and you now make that exact same item, that same food thing, that same lasagna, that same cake, that same cookie, that same drink that they made. But because you have that recipe card, you can now make it for your family. Then you pass that down to the next generation, next generation. Some people, like I said, have notes that maybe they were a pen pal with a friend. And you look back at these notes and you're like, wow, I remember writing this to my friend back in whatever country. Remember they used to do pen pal, like writing a lot back in the day. So those things also have meaning. You stumble across it and memories flood back to your mind. But isn't it interesting that, again, we live in a world of data, emails, text messages, cloud storage, smartphones, and yet we still want to keep holding on to those pieces of paper. Even if it gets yellow, even if it gets a little ripped, a little creased, we still want to hold on to it. And why? Each person's handwriting is different, but it's personal. You can almost see the person. You can almost hear their voice when you're reading those things. You can almost revisit the moment. Some of you guys have those notes, those letters stored somewhere safe. I have some of my letters put inside those plastic sleeves that are meant to keep like photos and stuff from getting old. I forget what the name. No, not sheet protector. It is sheet protector, but it's like a specific one that has like, so it doesn't like corrode or something. It's a specific thing. I forget what the name is. Um, but you stick like photos in there and stuff like that, so it doesn't get yellow and stuff. But you guys have those things of yours, yeah, like film and stuff like that. You have things that are handwritten, that are personal, that cannot be replaced. And like I said, they will bring you back to a moment. And some of you guys have birthday cards that you have not looked at for years. Like I said, this one, my birthday card from year one, year two, I've never looked at it till now, just because I felt the need to organize all my stuff. And now I have such more meaning behind it. I'm not gonna be like, hey mom, you can hold on to that. I wasn't even live. You can keep that card. Now I want to keep the card because it means something to me. So if you were to pull out one of those handwritten things and you started reading it, you realize that those words on that piece of paper are not words anymore. They revisit you to that season of time. They allow you to remember who you were back then, what life was like back then, who gave that to you back then. Because sometimes just a piece of paper becomes like a doorway back to a previous chapter of your life. And so I was going through and I came across this. So this was my kindergarten assignment. It says my alphabet picture book. Now, remember, this is kindergarten. So these may look amazing, but I know my mom cut these out and she glued them. But the point why I kept it is because I wrote my name right here. My little 4 year old self trying to write Sebastian with a combination of uppercase and lowercase letters that are like, if you can kind of, I don't know if you can see it on there. But like I got a lowercase s, lowercase e, lowercase b, a capital S, lowercase t, I, a, and then my N looks like an H. But I like this because this was probably the first time I practiced writing. I came across my report cards when I was in pre-K and kindergarten, and they have that handwriting section. You don't get that really anymore in middle school, high school. And I saw my grades go from N, needs improvement, to then I, improving, to then S, satisfactory, to then maybe G for good. I don't think I ever got E, excellent, for handwriting. I always struggled with penmanship. I still have really bad penmanship. I write very small. I I am. That has not changed. That personality trait, God just poured that onto me. Bad penmanship, and it's never changed. But to be honest, I can see that this thing has rips in it. I can see that this piece of paper has markings. It's faded. The ink is fading, and you might look at this and you say, you know what, Sebastian, you didn't even do the work. Your mom did all these little cutouts of these things in magazines. All you did was write your name. Why are you keeping it? Because I know that was the first time I wrote my name on something. I know that was probably my first assignment. I know that it's a very early memory of mine. I remember holding pencils, grabbing it like this and trying to do it like that. You didn't learn the motion for holding. And I can't throw it away. I have to keep it. Now, I might find like middle school and high school papers that I wrote for like English class or history class. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, okay, 80, 90, whatever. I don't need it anymore. But this holds meaning because this was my first ones. And so people might say, well, why don't you just take a picture and then store that in your cloud? Why do you need to keep this physical object? Because the digital thing is a lot different than this physical thing. That photo might remind me of a time, but this takes me back to the time. This transports me to remembering my mom going through all these magazines and cutting all these pictures that are A through Z. Remembering writing my name on this piece of paper takes me back to a memory. It's precious to me. It's valuable to me. But then Solomon is teaching that these handwritten keepsakes can remind you of laughter, can remind you of joy, remind you of pain, remind you of all those things because that's how life is. Some things remind you of mourning. Some things remind you of the hard chapters of your life, the difficult chapters of your life, moments that changed you forever. And every time you see them, you're reminded that life contains both the good and the bad, the happy, the sad, the time to laugh, the time to weep, the time to dance, the time to mourn. And if you've lived long enough, you know that you've experienced both. Life has not always been great. It's not always been joy, 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 joy. You've had mixtures of all. The keepsake is proof of that. The handwriting is proof of it. The season is proof of it. Life did happen. The years passed on. The seasons did change. And somehow, this little piece of paper is still here and is proof that I grew up from this age to how I am now. Because Solomon was right. There is a time to laugh, there is a time to weep. And so sometimes that little handwritten note, that letter, this thing right here, they remind you. Solomon even says even further in verse 6, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away. I smile when I read that verse because Solomon says there is a time to keep and a time to cast away. I'm doing a whole sermon about throwing things away. So that's kind of cool that like I wanted to use this passage, and now there's a verse specifically talking about this part of life. When you're looking at items, when you're looking at things, and you think to yourself, should I keep this? Should I throw it away? Does it hold meaning to me? And there's a lot of people that do that. A lot of people have lunch boxes of their own. Maybe not a physical lunchbox, but they have some sort of area that they store things. I know when you're a kid, you love to, when your parents say clean your room, you just shove everything underneath your bed. Or you push everything in your closet because you're like, I need to store these things somewhere. I know they're all going to be there. And they're going to say that, oh, yeah, my room is now clean. But you did that because you know where everything is. You have that organized chaos. But people have places to store their keepsakes. And it survives. And we all have things like that. Things that should have disappeared years ago. Things that have not been used for years and have no reason to stay in your possessions. Things that don't even serve a practical purpose anymore. Maybe life's moved on and upgraded. You don't need to keep that floppy disk anymore. There's no computer that accepts floppy disks. Now it's CDs, USBs, all those things. But if you have an older computer, you can use the floppy disk. So you think to yourself, now, in case I find an old computer at a thrift store, I can then stick the floppy disk in and find all my files. You think that to yourself, but even though it doesn't serve any practical purpose, they take up space. We have old TVs in my house. We don't have flat TVs, and we have some, but we have those like fat TVs, the ones that accept the color plugs and stuff like that. And those take up space. They're heavy, but I don't want to throw those away. I like them. I like to play my old systems on that. I play my Nintendo 64 on that old TV. I play my VHS tapes on that TV. We have boom boxes, stereo systems that play cassette tapes. Other people don't really have those things. They have CDs and digital, but you have those tapes that you kept and you want to use. And so we're going to move on to the next thing, the childhood keepsakes. And so these are things that you haven't touched in years. These are toys, these are stuffed animals and stuff like that. And we all have, at one point, had a favorite toy. You had a favorite stuffed animal, you had a collection of some sort. And when you look at it again, it brings you back to a memory. And so I have a toy. This was my teddy bear when I was a kid. What year did we get this from?
I want to say probably 92. Because I think
92, so the
I think
year.
we were already here.
Okay,
I
so
don't think Steve had it complete.
so then this probably was my first toy. And it's lasted me a long time. I know it's supposed to be a polar bear and it's not as white. But I remember playing with this all the time growing up. I took it everywhere, and now I'm in my 30s and I still have possession of it. I'm not going to throw this away. I'm not going to donate it. I'm going to keep it because this is a memory for me. This was, when I think back of my childhood, all the good and all the bad parts of my childhood, this thing was with me through all of that. And so it reminds me of good times, even in the midst of more difficult times. So yes, it's not as new looking anymore. It's got some seams not as nice anymore. But Solomon is telling us that there is a time to get, that there is a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to cast away. And so all those things tell us that we are still carrying things from season to season, not because they're useful or valuable or practical, but that they remind us that life happened, that childhood did happen, that those years happened, those miracles, those memories, they all happened to you. And the older you get, the more you realize that those seasons are gone, but the memories still remain with you. He says in verse 11, He hath made everything beautiful in His time. We don't like the His time part because we like things to be done on our time. But in other words, every season has its time. The season will start, you go through the season, and then the season will end. Childhood had its time. Once you get past that age 18, you're now considered an adult. You can't hold on and be a child anymore. You're thrust into adulthood. School, when you go through elementary school, middle school, high school, unless you go to college and pursue more teaching, more learning, school had its time. You don't need to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning anymore and put on your clothes and go sit in a classroom. Those early years of marriage, they had their time. Those years of raising your children had their time. Those family gatherings, when people were still around, had their time. And so those moments that we still talk about have their time. They're memories. They're chapters of our life. They're parts of our story. And then there are things that don't just connect us to a season anymore. They connect us to generation. These things are family heirlooms. And so heirlooms are a lot different. Heirlooms are rarely about money. They're rarely about usefulness. Heirlooms are about people. If you have a ring, if you have a watch, if you have a Bible, if you have a necklace, a piece of jewelry, a pocket knife, something that is passed from one generation to another, those things carry a story. Those things carry a memory. Those things carry a name. And if you ask somebody why they keep it, if they say, why do you have this ring? Why do you have this watch? They're not going to talk about why the watch is so cool. They're going to say, well, this was my grandfather's. This was my father's. This was my uncle's. He got it from so-and-so. And there's a story that is connected specifically to that item. You say, my grandmother wore this. My mother gave this to me. Because heirlooms are not really just about the thing anymore. They're about people. They're about relationships. They're about seasons. They're about the family history. And so some people have items that have been in your family longer than you've been alive. I have this item here. I'll try to take you to the photo right here. That ring that's on the screen. That ring is the size of a baby's pinky, because this is a baby's ring. Mom, where did we get this from?
Nani's mom gave it to me for Steve when she came to visit after he was born.
So my grandmother's mom, my great grandmother, gave this to my mother to give to my older brother when he was born. Now I have it. So this has crossed multiple generations. Great grandmother, grandmother, mother, child, and now future child will have this ring. This is now a family heirloom. I just found out about this yesterday. I didn't know we had this. I just asked my mom, I was like, Mom, do we even have a family heirloom? She's like, yeah, let me look. And then she opened up her little safe area with the jewelry. She's like, yeah, this was Nani's mother's. And then she was telling me the whole story. I was like, wow, this is very multi-generational. This little ring that can only fit on a baby's finger has been passed through so many generations. I'm not going to look at this ring and say, wow, this is a cool looking ring. Wow, this is made from this many carats of gold, this material. I'm going to say, wow, this was my great grandmother's ring that she bought specifically for my mom and her kids. This carries a story. This carries meaning. This is precious to me now because it's now an heirloom that passes from family to family. So a lot of us have been around all these different times, all these gatherings, all the Christmases, all the seasons. These items have passed through different hands because they're heirlooms, multiple homes, multiple generations, and somehow those things are still here. And you might look at it and you might say, those things are old. That's scratched. That is worn, that is outdated. But you can't convince anybody to throw those things away. Those things are way too important. They're tied to too many important people in their lives. So a ring, a watch, a piece of jewelry, you look at it, and again, you are transported to that person. Now, I can't look at this ring and remember my great grandmother. I don't have that memory. But if I give this to my mom, do you remember her giving you that ring? So she holds that memory. When she looks at that ring, she is pulled to a time remembering her grandmother giving her a ring for her children that she just had. I wasn't born yet. It was my older brother who was born. So she gets that memory. Now she can tell that story to me, then I can pass it along. So I might not get that strong of a story because it wasn't done to me, but I can now tell the story as I pass it along as well. But a lot of you guys have those things as well. You guys have your own probably heirlooms. I know some people have a Bible that has been passed down from person to person. Some people have rings, some people have clothing and stuff like that. So if you were to lose something of great importance, if you had a wedding ring, and let's just say you're washing the dishes, you took it off, you put it on the counter, you finish washing your dishes, you check the counter, it's not there anymore. You will freak out. You're going to be pulling up cushions, you're going to be sweeping everything and saying, I'm not going to vacuum the floor because I'm afraid of vacuuming this ring. I'm going to check the drain. You're going to do everything, retracing your steps because you cannot afford to lose that item. That is way too important because those things matter. Those things carry so much weight. And heirlooms have a way of reminding us about people who mattered. So Solomon said, to everything there's a season. And what have we been holding in our hands? Objects, but not just objects. Proof of seasons of our lives, proof of memories, proof that life keeps moving. Yet so many of us have those items that are still with us today. And if we're honest, we changed too. Not just those items, we changed as well. Because time leaves its marks. And that raises a question. If all those things changed, then why are they still here? I'm going to stop the message here because this is a very long message and I decided to work on it. And I really want to go deep into it because when I started researching this message and finding these articles, it makes me want to really understand why things are precious to us. You're going to learn in future messages when I talk about them that it's not just items that are precious. We're going to realize why are they precious to us. And then I was going to lead up to a part where I was going to say, well, if we deem those things precious, what does God deem as precious? And then we're going to go into, well, God deems us, his creation, as precious. And so I was going to lead into that. And we're going to go a whole thing, but time is going on because I got a little too happy looking at these items. So I want to end the message here, and I'll resume this on later parts. But thank you guys for taking this journey with me. This was a very fun thing to go through. I do want to pray. So let us bow our heads and pray, and then we'll lead to our communion and offering portion. Our precious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Thank you, Lord, for all you've done for us. You're worthy to be praised. Thank you, Lord, for all the people that came here today to praise and worship you, Lord, to study and read your word, and to fellowship with one another. Thank you, Lord, for who you are. You're worthy to be praised. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us through all seasons of our lives, all the good parts, all the bad parts, all the happy parts, all the sad parts. You were with us through all of it. Your word says you would never leave us nor forsake us. So, Lord, as we recall all these moments, all these chapters of our lives, from childhood till now, we remember that you stood by us through all of it. When we called on you, you listened. You said your ear is not short, your arm is not short, your ear is not deaf. So, Lord, thank you so much for heeding our call. Thank you, Lord, for being our protector, our provider, our healer, our refuge in our time of need. I pray this prayer for all of us here, that we continue to look to you for help and for wisdom and for guidance, for all the small things and all the big things that we have going on in our lives. Continue to strengthen us mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, in every which way, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for continuing to be someone that we can rely on. I pray all this in your wonderful, precious, and holy name. Amen.